This is another entry into the Is It Still Worth It playlist, where I take a look at a piece of Quo memorabilia from years gone by and ask the question, is it still worth picking up in 2024? Now in 2010, Status Quo released a Live at the BBC box set. Now, a lot of other bands had done this, like in 2 CD configurations, and it basically collected together, that band's material. With Status Quo, they had 3 different versions. You had 2 disc, which was sort of like cherry picking, and then you had a 4 disc, which was a little bit bigger, and finally the 7 CD plus 1 DVD box set, which was really comprehensive. You had everything from the earliest surviving BBC sessions in the 60s to like the 70s Paris theatre gig. There was stuff from the 80s there. There was like random radio show appearances like on John Peel and Ken Bruce, and even an acoustic session from the late 80s with the late Steve Wright. All sorts of things on there going up to around 2005. At some point they should release a follow-on, shouldn't they, containing some of the stuff that they've done since then, like in 2010-11 onwards. But that's a story and an idea for another day. In addition to those 3 box sets, they also released the DVD separately, which is what the subject of this video is about. Now, while the 7 CD was like really comprehensive, this kind of cherry picks bits. Now, the main focus of it is the NEC gig from 1982, 14th of May to be exact, which on the 7 disc is included in full. But on here, it's really just what the BBC broadcast. You have 11 tracks. If you know the album, or you know the whole gig after hearing it on Friday Rock Show or wherever it's been since, then you'll know it's not the whole gig. It's just sort of bits and pieces from it. It's what they broadcast with some of Tommy Vance's commentary on it, which at times is quite humorous. My favourite being when he says, for non-Quo aficionados, Rick is the blonde one, essentially. That's paraphrasing what he said. So this has got 11 tracks from that gig, which look great, straight from the master tape, broadcast copy as it will, which is great. I kind of wish it was the full gig. Maybe one day, fingers crossed. We'll have to wait and see. Then we have a selection of Top of the Pops performances from 1968 to 2005. Now, as you know, Quo made over 100 appearances on Top of the Pops. They're not all included here because there would have been a lot of doubles and triples and whatnot. But there are some omissions that I know exist, which I will talk about in just a moment. So we have Pictures of Matchstick Men, Caroline, Down Down, Mystery Song, What You're Proposing, Rock and Roll, Dear John, The Wanderer, Rollin' Home, Red Sky, In the Army Now, Dreamin', Burning Bridges, Let's Work Together, Jam Side Down, Rockin' All Over the World from 2002, and then The Party Ain't Over Yet, which was their last appearance on the 18th of September 2005. And yes, they have included the quite historic moment when at the end of the song you hear Francis say, "Thank you, Top of the Pops." I mean, I remember watching it. I watched it again for this review, and yeah, I had tears. So that is all the Top of the Pops stuff. Obviously, with it being live at the BBC, Top of the Pops wasn't always live, it was mimed in the most part, certainly for the first sort of 30 years, with a few exceptions, but a lot of the performances here are that. The video for Mystery Song is basically what they use as the music video. They've just like taken a bit from the episode, so you hear the clapping that they used at the beginning and at the end or whatever. But it's really nice to see because it's like a visual record of where they were visually as well as in sound, So I really enjoyed them, watching them, because they are a real moment in time, despite not being live. The emissions I mentioned, one in particular, I would have liked to have seen on here their 100th appearance on the show, which was I Didn't Mean It in 1994. But that isn't here. I would have liked to have seen that, because to me that's like the pinnacle, that's where the achievement lies. You could have used it, including their 100th appearance, but I think they've gone a bit greatest hits with it. I mean, especially including a 2002 performance, which is live, of Rockin' All Over the World. Kind of feels like they've gone, well, we need to put that on there, it has to be on there. It's like, but you've already got it from 82, why do we need a Top of the Pops performance, which I'm sure has been released elsewhere. Then in addition to those TOTP performances, we have bonus BBC appearances 1981 to 2000, including a Francis and Rick interview with Bob Harris from the Old Grey Whistle Test from November 1984. Should have performed on it. Yeah, that's all I'm saying about that. Interesting to see though. A Mess of Blues from Saturday Superstore in 83. Margarita Time from January 84. Can't Give You More from Wogan, 1991. And then we have Old Time Rock and Roll from Jim Davidson Presents Roadhouse Blues Medley, live from Amsterdam, which appears to be taken from a Top of the Pops 2 repeat. I'm sure they must have had it in another form. Must have just been easier to get. And then the Rock Till You Drop medley, which it says here is from Jim Davidson's Generation Game from the 21st of November 1998, which was a very odd thing to see, I must say, considering that Brit Awards medley has a very, I mean, it's interesting they've called it the Rock Till You Drop medley, considering it wasn't included on that album until the deluxe edition recently. But yeah, the sound of it's very evocative of that, and by 98 they kind of gone in a different direction, so it was interesting, sound wise, live wise, to hear that. Yeah, so that is all the stuff that's on here. A couple of nitpicky details. Some of the later appearances, certainly with Top of the Pops, were in widescreen, and certainly on my player it might work differently with other people's, but with my player you had the 4:3 aspect ratio, and then because it's widescreen you had bars at the top and at the bottom as well, which is kind of annoying, but I understand if that's how it's been technically formatted, because the majority of the material is that. So let's ask the question now, is this still worth picking up in 2024, or whatever year this happens to be? Well, we have a nice write-up in here from Dave Ling, who's appeared in many different publications to do with Quo over the years, which is a nice little bonus. Little story talking about the BBC as an institution, Quo as an institution. I found this very nostalgic. Certainly, seeing those Top of the Pops performances at various points, especially like Jam Side Down and for me The Party Ain't Over Yet, because I saw those when they were relatively new, if not going out live at the time. This is probably the most complete live at the NEC that there's been on physical media so far. You'd probably fill up half the disc if they'd done like 4,500 times, which does exist in video form because it's on the Party Ain't Over Yet DVD. It is nice to have, and it's better than being like dribs and drabs. I mean, at least it's basically a BBC broadcast, a record of what they broadcast at the time. But one day, fingers crossed, there'll be something a lot more comprehensive come out. Hopefully one day they reissue this with another kind of mindset, I guess. Certainly if they did it now, you'd have a lot more appearances to draw from, and you'd perhaps make it 2 or 3 disc. Let me know, do you think this is still worth picking up in 2024, or whatever year this is? Let me know in the comments below.